Welcome to the Flight Club Podcast, a woman's guide to leaning out. We give you a behind-the-scenes look at business launch and growth through the stories of successful female entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Felina Hansen, founder and CEO of Hera Hub.
Hello and welcome. I am so excited to have a conversation today with Anjalee Narenthiren. She is the speaker and program director at Startup Dojo and host of a really cool podcast called Youngpreneur. Anjalee is an international VEX Robotics champion, having beat over 20,000 teams in 2 consecutive years. She also founded her first startup, this is amazing, at age 15. And she's currently enrolled. She's doing a double major right now. She's currently enrolled at the Jerome Fisher M&T program at the University of Pennsylvania. Again, pursuing a double degree with the Wharton School of Business and the Penn School of Engineering. Welcome to the show today, Anjalee.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to share your story. What you might not know about me is I was a young entrepreneur too. My first business was not as technologically savvy as yours was. I sold peacock feathers in my hometown here in California at age 7 and walked away with $80 in my pocket selling peacock feathers in front of the corner store in my small town. So that was my first entrepreneurial venture. And $80 back in that day, I was like a millionaire almost. No, I'm teasing. So super excited to share your entrepreneurial journey. I know you are a Canadian. Talk to me about your early years growing up. Were your parents entrepreneurial? What inspired this entrepreneurial, streak in you? And then how did you get involved initially in robotics?
Yeah, great question. So, yeah, totally right. I'm from Canada, so born and raised in Toronto. My parents, they are also very entrepreneurial, and I feel like that certainly played a big role in allowing me to, pursue kind of unconventional interests at a young age. So for some background, with the venture that I was running at 15, I skipped school to kind of make that work. And of course, there was pushback as you expect from any parents, but it was really great to have them also understand where I was coming from and be open to allowing me to take some risks to really pursue what I was passionate about, even if it was off of that unconventional path. And I feel like, the fact that my dad also was an entrepreneur, it helped ease the conversation a little bit when I had all these crazy ideas that I was trying to convince them about. So yeah, definitely very fortunate about that. And the second part of your question, was it about robotics?
Yeah. Well, let's get to that too. Describe that first business at 15 for us.
Of course. So growing up, this actually ties into the robotics, so kind of a perfect segue. Growing up, I'd always been super passionate about tech. I was very fortunate to kind of fall into it at like 10, 11 years old. When I first started coding, I first got into like robotics, where I was competing in these little competitions where you were building Lego robots for kids. I fell into that. I fell in love with it, and I stuck with it for like all of my educational journey up until college. And in between that, I realized something that really, really bothered me. I realized that at age 15 in grade 10, when the first tech electives were being offered by our high school, like computer science electives, that sort of thing, I realized that all of my girlfriends were like dropping out of them because, unlike me, they hadn't had that same exposure. And also they hadn't seen anybody like older than them, like one step above, who had excelled in computer science. So they had already kind of typed themselves as not, like, this is not for me. And to the point where a lot of them didn't even allow themselves to try it. And that was really frustrating to me because I knew how much, I also saw myself in that same position when I started, but it was that trial process at a young age that really opened up so many doors for me, so many opportunities, and allowed me to see myself in a different way, see the world in a different way. So I was just really frustrated about this problem. And the business, like the venture that I worked on, was really just, me as a kid being frustrated and trying to like hit my head against a wall to figure out like there has to be something I can do to make this a little better. So that's how that started off.
Awesome. And so what did you do exactly to make it better?
Yeah, so it started from very humble roots. So I started off and I was like, God, this sucks. This sucks. So I did the first thing I could think of. I started emailing teachers all around, and I was like, okay, what do I know about this problem? I know that I am a unique case because I got exposed to tech early. So what if I can help change that in the like? What if I can change that for other young kids? I can help them get started with computer science and tech early, so that by the time they're older, they haven't already typed themselves into like, oh, I'm not a tech person. So I started emailing elementary school teachers, and I was like, hey, I will run free workshops for you. I'll do whatever. I'm just really passionate about tech. Will you let me share this with your students? And I had no idea what I was doing. I was just frustrated, and I was sending out these emails. Eventually, I get back one positive response that turns into multiple positive responses, way more than I expected. So from here, I was like, damn, okay, now I put myself into, I didn't realize I was doing it at that time, but I'd kind of done that kind of initial customer testing by sending out all these emails and seeing if my accidental target customer was excited about what I wanted to offer. But so I'd done that part of it, but I also had no solution for them. So I leaned on the resources that I had. I had great mentors along the way, like my computer science teacher, who I'm so thankful to this day, who allowed me to borrow his personal kits to teach these workshops that I'd kind of made up and already offered to teachers and kind of sold to them. So that's how it started. And from there, it kind of just cycled off that idea. So kind of scaling that up, bringing robotics workshops to young students to help engage them in STEM much earlier on in the pipeline, so that by the time they're older, they have that experience.
I love it. That's awesome. Perfect. You're like, I saw a problem, I tested my market, and I went for it. That is so awesome. So I know that you're still in the startup world now. We'll get to that here in a moment. How old are you currently, Anjalee?
I am 19 years old.
Amazing. Okay, awesome. I guarantee you, everybody listening to this is going to be like, oh my gosh, I am such a slacker. Okay, so you started your first entrepreneurial venture, teaching these workshops when you were 15. Was the school district supportive? Were you able to monetize this at a certain point?
Yeah, so we were able to grow a team around it. Eventually, we were able to impact like over 1,000 kids, which was really cool. And of course, there were tons of hiccups along the way. It's funny you bring up the school district. As we started to like scale, I ran into so many funny problems that I never could have foreseen. Because here I was with a solution that it seemed really clear to me that the market wanted, right? The kids loved it. The teachers wanted this kind of thing. But as I tried to scale and like reach more schools, there were so many issues I ran into around like red tape with working the districts, and that was really a new concept to me at that age. So getting to kind of like puzzle through those issues and kind of hack my way around them was a really, really good learning experience. And that's kind of what made me fall in love with entrepreneurship as a whole, because I realized, there's tons of challenges, and I like there's so many times I wanted to quit, but it's really rewarding when you kind of figure these things out and you make it work and you like get people excited and like just all the pieces of it. I really fell in love with it because of those little hiccups or big hiccups we had along the way.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. And you did that under the brand Tech Explore, is that right?
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct.
Awesome. Awesome. Want to talk a little bit about failure, which is a very popular conversation in the startup world. Fail fast, all the catchphrases that we love out of Silicon Valley. But for women in particular, and this has been an interesting conversation that we've continued to have here at Hera Hub, and even more so from a global perspective. For a couple of years, we had a location in Sweden, and we had members there in our co-working space. And this conversation kept coming up, this fear of failure for women in particular, and even in a country like Sweden, which is, there's lots of social services, safety nets, if you will. If you fail, you're going to have healthcare. Whereas here in the US, you may not have healthcare. There isn't that social safety net. So what's your, advice for others, and especially for girls and women, on this concept of failure?
I hate to be super cheesy, but I really have to echo the thought, the Silicon Valley tech startup kind of thought that you mentioned earlier, about how important failure is. It's super scary and it's super uncomfortable to fail. But what really helped me, and I think every single achievement that I can now list off, or the thing that I'm proud of, it happened directly because of a failure. And in the moment, I thought, this is it. This is the end. Turns out it wasn't. It was actually the beginning of something amazing. And now in retrospect, that is what led to some big achievement or something that I'm super proud of. So I know in the moment, it always feels like the end of the world, but it's really so important to have those failures. And what helped me kind of get used to it and get more comfortable with failing is kind of reframing failures as lessons. Because if you think about it, entrepreneurship or building a business is kind of like putting together a puzzle. There's nothing that nobody knows anything going in. You're constantly trying to get information and figure things out. And every time you get a no or something doesn't work out, that's a new data point that you can use to put together the puzzle. So instead of being like, damn, that didn't work when things failed, as I got more practice with failing, I got better at saying, that's cool. That's a cool new data point. Now I know how to approach this problem differently. And I know, okay, now that tells me I should try this instead. And by reframing it, it made the process so much more fun, so much more enjoyable, and so much more rewarding. So to sum it all up, if I had to, give one piece of advice to women, females, or anyone, I think I would recommend kind of trying to reframe failure in that way, because that really helped me.
I love it. Awesome. Great advice. So did Tech Explore eventually merge into your current company, the Startup Dojo, or is that different? And then also let's talk about your podcast as well.
Great question. So Tech Explore was really a catalyst that led to the founding of Startup Dojo. So Startup Dojo came from a similar place. I'm somebody, I guess this is just kind of like a theme about me, but I'm somebody who's really passionate about what I do. And when I see a problem, I really can't stand to see it there, right? So coming out of Tech Explore, I saw another problem, similar to how I started Tech Explore. I realized that entrepreneurship, building a venture at a young age, was one of the most rewarding experiences I'd gotten to have at that point, for so many reasons. First of all, there's nothing that really teaches you how to think independently and figure things out and really get things done than trying to build a business from scratch while you're balancing AP Chem homework and math and everything else. There's really nothing that teaches you and forces you to grow like that sort of a pressure cooker. And when you're in that environment, there's just so much room for growth that I found so rewarding. And I realized that most students don't have access to that. It's also super frustrating because, if you're trying to balance AP Chem with building a business, you don't really know where to go, and it can feel super lonely. for me, it felt super lonely because I didn't know anyone else my age doing entrepreneurship. So I wanted to do something to make this better. How could I bring this really educational, really rewarding experience to more young people and do it in a way that it solved a lot of my pain points when I was going through it? So how can I create a community? How can I make youngpreneurs feel like they're not alone? Because we all know entrepreneurship is super lonely. And I think when you're at that age, especially, it's even more so. So how could we change that and make that better? So that's to kind of mulling over this problem for a while. That's really what led to me founding Startup Dojo, because I just wanted to solve this. And then from there, the program kind of grew organically. We went from having our first couple students to testing it out with different ages. What ages does this resonate with? Now we work with high school students. We've had high school students who've been invited to pitch their businesses on Dragon's Den, which is like the Canadian version of Shark Tank. We've gotten some awesome hype and some awesome support from some amazing multi-billion-dollar companies who are also really passionate about this cause. And it's really become something so much more than I can imagine. And that's really because of, I think, our teenpreneurs and the people we have the pleasure of supporting.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah. And I've spent some time on your site. You are doing so much with this. It's exciting. And again, you have a podcast as well around this. If folks are listening and they want to check it out, it's mystartupdojo.com. I do want to say though, Anjalee, I'm looking at your luminaries page and it's looking like pretty male. Am I missing? We've got to get some women in here.
That's a great point. We're currently working on bringing in more women. We're just adding them to the website. We do have more people outside of that page, but that is a great point. Okay. That is an active focus of ours, and we're up in the game on that.
Okay, perfect. I'm like, wait, we've got a lot of accomplished gentlemen here, but would definitely love to see. And that leads into my next question. So I taught entrepreneurship at the college level when I had a marketing agency prior to launching Hera Hub almost 11 years ago, just for fun on the side. And I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurship instructors across the country, and they always say the same thing. How do I get more girls, women involved in some of our entrepreneurship programs? And you are at a very prestigious business school currently. So I'm curious, what the mix of students looks like in that entrepreneurship, in programs or pitch competitions or things of that nature. Around this, what can the Wharton School do? What can business schools do better? And you're solving part of this problem with Startup Dojo, of course, but what can they do better to encourage more women to really get involved and participate, especially in these pitch competitions? I see these competitions and there'll be like a team of 4 and it's like 3 dudes and a woman, and she's the marketing person all of the time. So hopefully your experience has evolved from there. But the question again is, what can some of these universities do better?
That's a great question. I think some things that would really help, at least from what I found with Startup Dojo, I guess, is I think having the role models. So having lots of female leaders like myself seems to have really helped our mix, because we have majority female, super successful female teenpreneurs that we get to work with. So I think that's a big part of it, making sure that the people who are getting the word out aren't your tech bros talking to their tech bros and trying to get, and then they eventually get more tech bros coming to the pitch contest, but rather making sure that the administrative team on pitch contests that are making these also has an even mix. The promotional team also has an even mix on gender. So you're getting the word out evenly between demographics. I feel like that's one clear solution or easy thing to think about going forwards. And I think the other thing is also in education generally, I think this really relates back to what we've been talking about for most of this interview, but to make young people not be afraid of failure. So much of the education system is based around penalizing being wrong. But to me, that seems so silly because in life, like life doesn't work like school. You don't get an A because you you did something right. Your life progresses when you do something wrong, you learn from it, and you level yourself up, or you pursue the challenge, you don't give up. So I think I would call out all forms of education, especially younger all the way to college level, to really celebrate and encourage learning through getting things wrong and help try to reframe how we think about that.
Yeah, no, good advice. Absolutely. I mean, gosh, we could talk probably for hours about the broken educational system from a young age into college. And loads of folks that I know talk about, can you really learn entrepreneurship in a classroom even, right? And there's some schools out there that do like 6 months apprentice programs. You jump from one company to the next and you just immerse yourself in the startup world and have those experiences. So lots to explore there. Well, with Startup Dojo and your podcast, what are some of the things you're excited about this upcoming year?
I am super excited to continue working with our current and upcoming cohorts of Startup Dojo. That's always super exciting, just to get to work with all of the teenpreneurs and see their growth from beginning to end, see them come out with not only like this business, but also how they see themselves totally shifts. For most young people, entrepreneurship likely isn't even a word in their dictionary. So when they see themselves not only figuring this out and building something real that impacts people and helps people on oftentimes a large scale, it totally changes how these teenpreneurs who are kind of told by society, oh, you're a teen, you can't really do anything yet, you need to wait until you're older. For them to see the impact that they're able to make at a young age and how that changes how they view themselves is so rewarding. So that's always kind of the highlight of my year, getting to work with these teenpreneurs and help them get through that and come out the other side. I think that has to be the number one.
I love it. And it looks like from your website, and again, if folks want to explore this for a teen in their life, they can take a look at your site, mystartupdojo.com. It looks like you have a weekly curriculum that the teens go through. There's mastermind groups, coaching. It looks like a very immersive program.
Yeah, for sure. And we really, really emphasize just iterative growth. So all of the pillars are kind of built around helping the teenpreneurs figure out, where am I at now and how do I get to what is the next step I want to be at and how do I get there? So it's not just about shoving content down their throat. We really try to minimize that, but it's much more practical of where am I at? How do I get to the next step? How do I get to the next step? How do I get to the next step? And the luminaries of coaching, they all just feed into that to really support the teenpreneurs. And because of that, everyone does something super unique, super different. We have people working on kind of more nonprofits that are now partnering with national nonprofits and trying to scale to for-profit businesses. We have teenpreneurs who get to work on all kinds of things because we're not really focused on shoving content down their throat, but more about helping them actually build that business. So it's very exciting. And I highly recommend that anybody who's interested or knows someone who they think might be an awesome budding young teenpreneur to really check out this site. I'm so passionate about what we do, if you can't tell.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, yes. So the website again, mystartupdojo.com. If our listeners want to get in touch with you, Anjalee, what's the best way for them to do that?
Great question. So of course, mystartupdojo.com to check out Startup Dojo. And then also feel free to check out the podcast at youngpreneur.world. And then there should be a contact page up on there that you can use to reach out to us. And yeah, we'd love to hear your story and maybe even feature you on a podcast. So please do check that out and contact us if that seems like it would be interesting to you.
Awesome. Well, I have really enjoyed our conversation and getting to know you. So amazing what you built at the ripe old age of 19. Pretty incredible, and excited to continue to see all the amazing things you do. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. This was such an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for joining this week's episode of Flight Club, sponsored by Hera Hub. We look forward to sharing more success stories with you soon.